As more children are becoming exposed to mature content through social interaction, their brain's development is mutated by either being underdeveloped or hyperdeveloped. Although many issues occur by genetic effects such as schizophrenia, many mental illnesses are developed by experiences, adding to the long question of psychological effects, leading to the social trial of nurture versus nature, developing into a conflict between many present-day philosophers. In the book A Long Way Gone, Ishmael Bay illustrates these effects perfectly by depicting his younger self during the Civil War of Sierra Leone. Exposed to mature content through the war and his part in it, he becomes an empathetic killer who feels like everyone is against him. He becomes exposed to drugs and alcohol and guns, proposing him to be mentally damaged. It is not until he is taken out of this environment and put into a loving one that he becomes normal again. Mental instabilities like PTSD have been proven to be more vicious and dangerous than those acquired genetically, like schizophrenia. The question at hand is not which one is the problem, but which one affects society more negatively, which one can be fixed, and which one affects more people. But first, we must understand how the effects on the brain from environmental and genetic influences are so predictable. Contrary to popular belief, human behavior thinking process is not unique. In fact, human behavior is 93% predictable. In 1956, two computer science researchers were able to develop a program that simulated human behavior during a high-level task. Psychologists were also able to predict the behavior of those with an MAOA gene, which is a gene that appears and increases antisocial behavior and the possibility of a criminal future. The theology of empiricists is the theology that a person's action is a direct relation to its living environment and condition. As theologist John B. Watson theorized that a person could be raised to do and become anything, regardless of their genetic background. Understanding now that human actions are truly very predictable, we can fully understand how the maturing of a child can be so effective for their lives. Two psychologists, David Kanner in 2005 and Peter Krinsky, conducted two different studies on the brain development of serial killers, if they were psychotic and when they developed their psychosis. They discovered that in the first 12 months after birth were the most reflective on lifetime actions. That if a child does not receive enough emotional and physical attention, that the child could develop psychopathic tendencies as early as the age of 2, increasing the importance of a loving and nurturing environment as a young child. Psychologist Eric Eckerson also developed a theory of maturing through stages while growing up, and as you mature, your mastery of these stages increases. But if the stage is not fully mastered, it would appear as a problem later in life. Clinical psychologist Jean Paget would divide these developments into 4 different stages. 1. The sensory-motor stage, from birth to 2, a period of rapid cognitive growth through events of trial and error. 2. The pre-operational stage, from 2 to 7 years, where the child begins to experience the world and adapts to the environment they are situated in. 3. The concrete operational stage, from 7 to 12 years, where the child begins to explore more complex and cognitive functions using logical and operational thought of their action. Lastly, the stage of formal operations that characterizes the adolescent and the adult. Beginning at age 11, the child begins to think in abstract ways categorized in priority reasoning. When one of these stages is not fully developed, it results in mental restrictions in forms that could lead to being antisocial or shy. Many serial killers have been known to contain these traits, like Dexter Hauser, who experienced his mother's violent murder in front of him and forced to lie with her dead body for days before being rescued, causing both him and his brother to suffer from an emotional detachment from people and a severe lack of trust. James Holmes, who had also been socially detached, shy, quiet, yet very intelligent. His detachment from the real world would cause him to believe that he was the Joker and go on a shooting spree in a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. And Gary Ridgway, who suffered from an abusive mother, making him develop a special hatred towards women, in all killing around 80 prostitutes during his 20-year killing spree in King County, Washington. Following the importance of a childhood development, another study conducted linked childhood trauma to the development of serial killers. 42 were physically abused, 74 psychologically abused, 43% were sexually abused, and 35% witnessed sexual abuse, depicting how damaging environments can be as a child and how typically the brain reacts to traumatic events by separating itself emotionally. And other forms of traumatic events can occur and affect people after development, such as PTSD, which can change how a person acts after they've experienced a traumatic event. Most commonly seen in soldiers after war, it can cause a person to change personal routines or activities in hopes of avoiding what it triggers them into flashbacks. All of these factors play into what becomes of a person psychologically and how they develop, proposing a person's childhood to be the most important and influential part of their lives. Genetic effects on the brain are generally not as dangerous as those developed, but few mutations to the brain and its psyche during physical development can result in the same issues. Latent inhibition is a stimulus that is able to consciously observe meaning of a conversation or phrase. A study conducted to test these stimuli have shown that those with a decrease in the stimulant are more prone to become mentally unstable or psychotic. Mutations in the brain is related to the brain's neurotransmitter, which receives dopamine and neurons. Typically, when a person's neurotransmitters have been mutated or partially restricted, they affect the amount of dopamine and neurons the brain receives and how they perceive phrases in conversation. Psychologist and director of psychology at the Minnesota Center for Twin and Adoption Research at the University of Minnesota, Thomas J. Bouchard Jr. theorized that psychosis is 60% inherited through genes, suggesting that trait relies more on DNA than their personal experiences. Brain scans later revealed that on average, people who have committed major crimes have a decreased connectivity between the amygdala, a subcortical structure of the brain, and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex or cortical region in the prefrontal cortex, another part of the brain that interprets phrases and conversations. Both of these mutations are related to an issue in physical development of with the neurotransmitters or a reduction of the brain's white matter. The two similar defects in the brain connection have been linked to psychopathy in criminals, but whether or not this mutation can occur only during genetic building and cannot occur during Paget stages has not been identified yet. There are multiple issues with people developing mental instabilities like PTSD, including a decline in a person's mental function and behavior. Although both ways of developing mental issues, genetically and environmentally, are affecting society, only one can be majorly affected by change, with psychotic or mentally unstable people generally being categorized as extremely intelligent, as we lose them to the development of mental disconnection because of their environmental situation. It must be changed and improved. Losing these victims to mental instability is extremely harmful to the world's technological advancements, and if these people were able to positively influence the way they would thrive. All this relies on improvement of environment for children. If their attitudes were changed to love and care for their fellow species, they might be able to achieve or further support world peace, solve world hunger, or end war throughout the world. All these possibilities, and possibly many more, could be achieved if the travesty of the currently corrupt society wasn't revealed to them so soon.